This is Miracle Max. Welcome to Rise of Civilizations. Today I want to talk to you about something that seems to be causing confusion within our kingdom, and it seems even with other YouTubers. So I want to discuss with you the difference between secondary and support commanders. Now, to start with, our primary commander we should all know a lot about. In this case, I have Lohar up as my primary commander. When a primary commander goes into battle, his experience sets how many units we have and our town hall level. His skills, especially his two strongest, are shown below him. His damage to barbarians is 60.5%, and his experience buff is 88.5%. The talent tree of a primary commander is in effect, and so for the primary commander, everything is in play. A secondary commander is the commander you bring with the primary commander into battle in the same army. And if we look at secondary commanders, the skills of the secondary commander take effect, but talents and troop capacity do not. So when you're looking to combine a secondary commander, you're looking only at their skills. They're not going to affect your army size, and their talent tree doesn't come into play. All right, so now that we know what secondary commanders are, how do we pick them? There's two ways primarily to pick them. The first way is to look at the skills of your primary commander and look for ways to amplify them. For example, for Lohar, his skills are heavy damage to barbarians and a great experience buff. So if I want to bring up his experience to barbarians, I'm going to look for another troop that has a peacekeeper ability. In my case, Minamoto is the best. If you notice, my damage to barbarians went up and my experience stayed the same. Other choices, depending on who you have, would be Boudica. If you notice, my damage went down a little bit, but my experience took a big shot up. The other peacekeeper who's available to us is Cao Cao. And Cao Cao, if you look, my damage to barbarians went down and experience is about the same. So in this case, if I'm looking for heavy damage, I would pick Minamoto. And if I'm looking for big experience gains, I would pick Boudica. So those are the commanders I would choose if I want to amplify Lohar's skills. The second way you can pair up Lohar is to look at his weaknesses and balance them out. Lohar, if we go back to him and look at just his skills, his four main skills are direct damage. This is his rage skill, which comes into play every time you gain 1,000 rage, which is about 10 turns. And in that, he does direct damage and has some healing. His second skill is damage to barbarians, which we already saw. His third skill is increased experience, which we already saw. And his fourth skill is healing some slightly wounded units upon leaving battle. And his fifth skill just amplifies that. So good heal and good attack, but no defense. So when I look to Lohar and I want to balance his skills out, take care of his weaknesses, there's a couple ways I can go on him. And again, it depends on who you have. The first choice is Martel. And Martel, as a commander, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left that other screen. Let's go back in here. Charles Martel's very first skill is a huge defensive skill. He has a shield that absorbs massive damage, and this again is an active skill, so every time you gain 1,000 range, it goes into effect. So direct damage, or in this case, direct damage reducer of 1,200. And then he also has a damage buff, so he's going to increase our damage to the barbarians. The second commander that I would choose to balance out Lohar would be Joan of Arc. And Joan of Arc's first skill is a healing skill and also a defense skill. So if you look there, infantry and cavalry have a 20% bonus on attack. And then on top of that, she's granting herself and nearby forces this buff. So good skill. If we look, her second skill is just gathering. Her third skill is another healing skill. Her fourth skill is a damage reducing skill. And then her fifth skill is an additional buff to that health. So both Joan and Charles would balance out Lohar's weakness on defense. The last commander that I might use as a secondary for Lohar would be Tomoe Gozen. And the reason I would pick Tomoe Gozen as his secondary is she's just all around set up as a great secondary commander. If we look at her skills, she increases all attack. She has effect on archers, which doesn't really matter to me much. But here's her key skill as a secondary. She gains rage and increases the skill damage by 15% when she's serving as a secondary. So she was made to do this. And her last skill reduces target's damage. So again, damage reducer and rage increaser. All right, that covers secondary commanders. Well, what is a secondary? Or I'm sorry, that covers secondary commanders, but what is a support commander? Now, if I look at this level 23 barbarian and I go to attack him, I'm going to send out Lohar first. And I'm going to pair him with Minamoto since he was my big damage dealer. And if you can see, this is a neck and neck battle. So I picked the 23 because it was close and we don't have to wait to March. But if I went to try and hit a 25, I would be having a much harder time. So we're going to start his march and go ahead and camp him before he gets there. Now what a support commander is a support commander leads a second army onto the field and has specific skills that help support your first army. In this game, there are two true support commanders. And let's look at them in our commander tab. The first commander who's a true support commander is Joan of Arc. And Joan of Arc is a true support commander. Sorry, not her talents, her skills. Because of this skill here. It says Joan of Arc grants her own troops and nearby friendly forces a buff. And she is one of only two commanders who adds a buff to nearby friendly forces. So, though she isn't a very strong attacker, she can trail behind my primary attack squad and lead a support squad. And as a support squad leader, she will heal both herself and her troops and the primary army's troops. All right, so that is our first support commander. Our second support commander is Cleopatra. And again, if we look at her first skill, we have a healing factor for her army and nearby friendly armies. So same thing as Joan. I believe the factors are a little higher, but I don't have her developed. So her max is 415. Joan of Arc's max for healing, it's done as a percent. So a little harder to compare. All right, so if I'm creating now this second army to go out and attack, I'm going to go ahead and have Joan of Arc lead it so she can heal. And I'm going to put a defensive troop with her to help keep her alive even longer. The longer she's on the battlefield, the better my primary unit is going to go. So I'll put Charles Martel with her. If you look below them, they don't have much extra damage that they're adding. Only 20% and very little experience. But that's not what I'm looking for from them. I'm looking for a troop that can keep my primary units alive. We'll send her out. I'm going to have to pause it for a minute so I can get Lohar going. It's important when you do this to make sure your primary army hits first. The first army to hit a target is going to take the most damage and also do the most damage. So let's make sure that troop is out in front. So there goes Lohar. As soon as he gets going, I'll send in Joan of Arc behind. And what we're going to see is the big red numbers that pop up are the rage damage. The green numbers that pop up are the rage heal. And so we're seeing that in turns, though we're taking damage, we're also healing our troops at the same time. And that is Lohar's skill and Joan of Arc's skill. And then the shield that you see popping up is Charles Martel decreasing the damage. The two of these combine easily destroy this level 23 barbarian, and they could stay out on the field and do multiple attacks, taking little damage. So using a support commander to run a secondary army behind your main forces can really help in a battle, especially one where you're trying to hit the highest level of a barbarian possible. That's the end of this video. I hope that this helped explain the difference between secondary commanders and support commanders, and will help you know that for secondary commanders, you don't need to build their talent tree for their activities as a secondary commander. Support commanders, build their support tree. Let them help you out on the battlefield. We'll go ahead and return home, get my troops healing, and I will go back out in battle. All right, I hope you guys have a great day. If you like this video, please throw a like. If you have not subscribed yet, I would love to have you hit that button and join me for Rise of Civilizations content. I'm creating guides that are more advanced like this one, and also beginner's guides to help the new players get into the game. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day.